if he doesn't, we will understand. So nice that we finally could get together after a couple of postponements. As you saw from Nuno's memo to us, or as he said, agenda, there are quite a few things that need to be talked about that are important. I do want to move this meeting as quickly as possible so that by 9 o'clock, those of us who want to watch the debate can do that. So I've gone through the agenda and I've kind of highlighted in my own mind what things we need to really focus on and what things maybe could get taken care of quickly or not even talked about. But first things first, let's take care of the minutes. I want to kick this off by saying the last paragraph, I've thought about it and I feel it's best that it's not in there. That deals with the letter from the town to me. And if it would just say that I indicated that I would be setting a date for resignation from the board as someone who has been on the board and think it's time for a change. And just that kind of phrase, if we could do that instead of the last. Any objections to that? Okay, any other changes to the minutes? All right, I consider them approved then with that change. Thanks. I see us talking a little bit about the fiscal report as the next item. And then the survey, I think we can deal with fairly quickly. And I think we can approve the insurance contract and Corella's contract fairly quickly. So I'm going to suggest we do those first three at this point and then get into some more difficult issues. You got the cash position and the arrears statement. Let me hear if anyone else has anything about the cash position. I do have a few remarks about that. Okay, let me, Diana, you're not gonna, your face is not gonna come back to us?
I'm having an issue. Oops, sorry.
Ooh. Wow. Okay, is there anything LMC could tell about why she's not on video? Is your video not got a line through it? Does your video have a line through it?
I think she's having problems with her webcam, so
there
she
you are.
joined as another account and I just promoted her to panelist.
Okay. All right. So
Diana, you're currently muted.
this cash position shows the funds in all our accounts. Is this complete, Sal?
Yes, it is. We have the capital, the operating, and then the two operating accounts for Grammath and management. So that's accurate.
Right, but whenever we report this, Nuno, I think we should report it in terms of not where the money is, which is the way this is done, but the accounts we're keeping, which is an operating account and the two accounts that are in the memorandum of understanding with the town, and how much are in each of those two accounts. It's important that we show the two reserve accounts and the operating account. So this, you know, for instance, the Wells Fargo operating account here indicates that it's an operating account, but it isn't an operating account. It has a lot of our reserve in it. So if in the future that's done that way, I think it'd be real important. The thing I wanted to talk a little bit about are the arrears. We were concerned, last meeting about how COVID would be affecting rent collection and the tenants, and whether there's a need to see what help we could be, if any. Nuno, do you think this indicates that we're now going to be seeing some tenants with some real COVID income problems?
I think it's gotten better, and you know, it's a roller coaster. You know, I think the total number has decreased, but you know, tenants aren't paying in the first 5 days anymore. They're paying later in the month, and the only particular tenant who's, you know, has some issues has gotten a new job, so she is paying that down.
Okay.
Okay, and so you're optimistic about the ones that haven't paid in September that they'll be paying?
Yeah, I've been in discussion with them. It's just, you know, money's tight, and you know, I get it. And unfortunately, the additional $600 dried up, and you know, they have to make some different choices.
That's exactly what I'm concerned about. Anyone else, anything you want to discuss about the arrears? Yep, Diane?
Yeah, we had talked about at one of our meetings, and I would have to look back through the minutes, you know, potentially trying to provide some, you know, rental assistance or, you know, abatement to folks that were really struggling, you know, due to COVID. So I guess, you know, it sounds like, you know, the one tenant, you know, is on a payment plan, and that's good, but you know, without knowing the particulars of that person's circumstance, you know, I guess, you know, kind of deferring to you, who, you know, has a better sense of people's circumstances. Like, this is an unparalleled, you know, time of, you know, adversity and job loss. And, you know, so is there something, I mean, I think we'd have to do it across the board, but is this the moment to, you know, try and be of assistance, you know, to folks? Or yeah, just love to hear your perspective on that.
It's really the board's decision on what they want to do. I've been pretty lenient and lax and supportive of anyone who's come to me with, you know, the struggles, coming up with fair payment plans. You know, I mean, that's really all we can do in terms of management. Unless the board gives me some direction, I'll you know, I'll lead with it. But other than that, it's just really, you know, working, you know, human, really just listening to what they have to say, and you know, that's it. Not knocking on their door and giving them a eviction letter. I'm just working with them based on if I think they do indeed have a legitimate case.
It sounds like, as you said, the one most in arrears has got a job and is paying down. And if we see a problem in September in that the people who have been paying can't get it together, then maybe the next meeting ought to look at this. We will look at this each meeting, but at this point, it sounds, Diana, that we don't have a population that has any significant problem. That just and out of the number of tenants we have, to have only 3 that are a little late in September and the rest all making their payments, that's very good news.
And there is government programs that they have to apply for. I actually just gotten a few. Just, you know, they will pay the landlord directly if they do, you know, show a hardship. So everyone who's contacted me, I've given them that information on how to apply, but so far no one has gone through the efforts. Or New York State is so behind that I haven't gotten the e-sign documents yet.
It really sounds like a good job. Yeah, Sal?
I think it should be on a case-by-case basis. We've done that in the past, Rick, you know, as you remember. If somebody has difficulty paying, they can appeal to us, and then we can alleviate it as we see fit, basically. I'd stay away from something of a tax abatement and something across the board, because I think it invites people to take advantage of it. And we certainly don't want that, but we certainly can handle the individuals on a case-by-case basis. And as Nuno said, you know, give them some time and if they really do have a financial problem, we can do that just for them, basically.
Okay, can we close this subject now and move forward? Diana, you okay now?
Yes, yes, as long, like, I think that sounds, makes a lot of sense, Sal, so that if there's, someone who's in distress, like, we certainly don't want, them to be out on the street. So I think, your approach sounds good, which is just, not knocking on their door. And if you perceive that there's a real hardship, like, just keep in mind that, I guess we're open to hearing things on a case by case basis.
Diana, we've had this in the past. We've never, ever thrown anybody out because of a financial hardship. And we've had people that have been 6 months behind, but they promise, that, look, they'll pay it, and we allow them to pay it off slowly or whatever, so it fits them. But, that's the way I think we've handled it in the past, and it's been good that way.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
We're benevolent. We are.
We're a housing authority. We try to be benevolent. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nuno sent us all the survey, which made us scroll through a lot of pages to get to everything else. And my thumb really is, my finger pointing finger is very sore and not so happy about you, Nuno. I don't see this as a meeting to go through that survey. It certainly indicates that there is a considerable amount of work that adds up. Note for those who looked at the bottom line and saw that it was about $1 million, that 400,000 of that is windows. And most importantly, note that we will soon have paid off the bond. What's the date on that again?
August 2021.
August 2021. So
Right.
we're a year now.
Yeah.
The bond gets paid out, and that frees up how much per year?
About 250,000.
So what I believe given the survey from the engineers and the fact that most of that work that's in there isn't immediate work that has to be done, or almost all of it is not immediate work. We will be getting to discuss some more immediate work. Then I think as part of the next meeting, as Nuno suggested, where we need to do budgeting, we discuss a long-term financial plan, one that long-term, I mean 3, 4, 5 years, that recognizes the work that needs to be done and has a plan for how we're going to meet those costs. The survey is exactly what we need in order to be able to do that. Yes, Diana.
Just having, this is the first time I'm on the receiving end of the survey. And like you said, I read through it and I was like, how are we going to afford this? It looks terrifying. So I guess just, as a frame of reference, is this, relative to the survey you did last year? Are you like, oh yeah, same stuff in there. They say that every year. Is there anything that and I know you've outlined other issues below, Nuno, but is there anything in this that, you think is kind of more urgent or, so I guess the first question is this what you get every year, or is this abnormally, huge? And 2, are there big pressing things, looking at it that you are guys, hello?
This compared to the last surveys, of course, it's going to contain some of the stuff that was in it the last time because it still had useful life, and some of these items still have useful life. So there's a schedule in which you do replace things on. The only item on here that is actually being taken care of now, but not in respect to actually doing it, the entirety of it, is the wood deck in the rear. We've addressed this in the past with minor fixes. So we are, doing some minor repairs underneath the deck to make it hold through the winter. But it's probably one of the items that should be addressed next year.
Right.
We've put on a lot of Band-Aids on it over the years. And it's starting to really show its age. And other than that, I mean, the windows, we knew that was on there. There's still another year or 2 or 3 on them without major issues. I was going through some actually compiling the budget. Our window repairs aren't ginormous this year. They're about in line with what they've been in the past. So, we can still get by. But other than that, there's really nothing really pressing in there. Nothing that surprised me, to be honest with you.
Something surprised me, Nuno. Maybe I didn't really. I looked at the survey for that foundation walls for $680,000. That has never been in any of the other surveys, and I'm not really sure what the hell they mean by that.
Let's go there because I read it. Because I think Antonucci finally came to knowing what was going on once he actually went into 116. I think that's just a ballpark. I don't really think.
That's doing it to the whole complex, what they did to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure that we may be able to remediate that so that doesn't happen, but that's something that's very odd, the 6.8, I mean, we should really kind of look into it more because that may scare people going forward, And the windows, if we want to do that in the future, the future board, you can do that on a schedule like we did the boilers that, and do it a piece at a time, but we can discuss that. And that's, the windows are really the only major issue, I think, from the physical survey that I see that's, that has to be done in the future. Other than the deck that Nuno just mentioned, which, I took a look at it this weekend, and it needs to be replaced. It needs to be replaced with some, composite type of material, so it doesn't, degrade in the future.
So to me, the best way to handle this is for Nuno, for you to go through the items in the list of costs and put some timeline as to when you think they need to be done. And we'll do a capital plan.
Right. That's a good idea.
That should be part of the budgeting process that we go through this year. What is it that we think should be done in the next year? What is it that can go to 2 years and what can go for 5 years? And then look at the fact that we are going to get over $200,000 of money that we hadn't had before. Start putting that into the reserve in order to be able to pay those bills. And if not, then we have to look at raising rents, but hopefully we won't have to. So I'd like to suggest that we do that at the next meeting, Nuno, and you help us get through that process. And I think the meeting ought to be really just focused on operating budget and a capital budget.
Agree.
So two of the things that you put out for approval was the approval of renewing the insurance, and the other was the heating maintenance. Could you just quickly indicate if, Nuno, you think there's any reason that we shouldn't just be renewing these?
So the insurance has been bound already because we were pressed to bond. It was effective the 1st of September. So it was a 5.9% increase. We're seeing about 10% insurance renewal increases across the board. So 5.9% isn't so bad. Coverage has stayed the same. So it's been bound. We'd actually just made our down payment on it. So we're going to start seeing insurance bills next few months. So that is pretty much taken care of.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I forgot we talked about it and said go forward. Yeah.
And the next one is the Al Corelli. He services our boilers every year, starting usually in October. I spoke to Al. He's ready to go when we are. So his pricing went up significantly from last year, a 7% increase. Years past, he does about 1,000, 1,500 year over year an increase. As these boilers get older, they're a little more harder to deal with. The parts are getting more expensive. The parts are actually getting almost nearly impossible to find. So he did, include that in his pricing. He's been hoarding parts all year for us. So he's ready to proceed if we are. Yes?
Sorry, I'm just trying to take notes. So the Al Corelli, the boiler service, you have it as $1,551. Is that total or per boiler?
No, that's an increase. The proposal's in there, and I also included his last year's proposal as well. It's one of the last pages in this.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the increased amount. We've been working with Corelli for many years.
It's about 22,500.
Sal and I actually know his work on a very personal basis. He does really, he's a real genius on this stuff. And my view, to let you know, future boards can decide, is that having him around is going to be very helpful as problems come up as these get older, because he's
Right.
a problem solver. But he, he's living with increased costs, so he's has to pass them on to us.
Just so the board members know that when Al does the service, Louis also goes in the apartment and does his annual inspection, and then we get those reports at the end. So just so everyone knows.
That's great. We kill those two birds by one and don't bother the tenants more than once. Can I have a show of approval for the renewing that contract? Any objections?
No.
Okay. All right. Thumbs up. All right. So let me, I'm skipping the vacancy stuff because it looks like it's all moving around. We're getting tenants and I don't think there's anything to talk about there. The appliance information, let me suggest, is part of our budgeting. I don't think there's a decision there that needs to be made now. Am I right, Nuno? No.
And no, then the appliance thing is, at this point, with the way the supply chain is, you couldn't even get bulk appliances if you tried. So,
right.
I think it's on hold until everything normalizes.
It's great you looked into it and found some alternatives when things get a little more normal. So it gets us, yeah.
Sorry. Just, you mentioned a long lead time on appliances. What is that? Is it 6 months, a year? I'm trying to capture this all. Like what?
If you get an appliance from a local vendor, we use TISO or Prisco's, you're looking at a minimum of a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's getting better. It was a 2 months plus at one point.
Okay.
Thank you. So gas pipes. Sal, you or Nuno, either one or both, describe what this is for the other members here and the public.
Sure. So remember we had that gas leak and that affected 6 units, and then I was told to get a price to do the entire complex, because upon inspection of every utility closet and then start of kind of investigating and shining a light, a lot of the pipes are installed incorrectly, and that's from construction. They're not sleeved appropriately. They're sleeved in cement. So then they're exposed to the outdoor elements. So with the outdoor elements plus concrete, you're getting those pipes are starting to basically rot, and they will slowly leak over time. So I was kind of tasked with getting 3 bids to replace the additional, I think, 6 buildings or 5 buildings that we did not touch yet. And they're in there as well. The prices, one is extremely high, the other 2 are sort of in line. But unfortunately, we can't get this done before heating season. It's probably not a good task to, start during heating season, because people are going to be without heat for a day or 2. So this might be a project that's tabled to the spring.
Yeah, I think it's real important to note that this is something that needs to be done. It needs to be put in the capital plan that we're talking about. Perhaps it could be done over a few years because it's building by building. And it's very interesting that Citron was twice the cost. I know Citron, twice the cost of the other 2 vendors. So, and the other 2 vendors were very much in line. So we really know this is about $150,000 job. Citron sounds like they didn't want to do it.
No, they're just very expensive and they're overhead, but they will do it, correctly.
Any questions about this? If you remember this was, we had an emergency because we had a leak. Getting this work done proactively, hopefully will prevent an emergency. It's very unfortunate that this was built this way, but it has made the pipes last a lot less than they might otherwise. And it involves a great deal of work to get to the pipes. Okay.
I just have a quick question. Nuno, was B&C Plumbing the contractor that did the work?
Yes, they did the that first building, correct?
Okay. And they were satisfied. Everybody was, the inspectors and everybody was satisfied with their work, right?
Yeah, if that's the case, they may be the preferred contractor then, since the prices are so close.
I thought they did a really quick job, and efficient, and with probably the least amount of interruption. So if that's the case, then, they already know what's going on,
So, yeah, they devised a plan to do every building. They figured out how to, avoid excavating, which is the,
Right.
Oh, great, great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah, Diana.
So, you talked about how, this had been done, improperly, with it going through the concrete casing and, how that is subject to the elements. And obviously that resulted in a leak. The phased approach, putting it into the capital plan makes sense, but like, how big of a risk is this? If we know it was done improperly, like a gas leak sounds really bad and potentially harmful. So like,
I would phase this over X amount of years. I would do this in the spring. This way you have all the pipes that are aged the same and you don't have this apparent, that we know, risk out there.
Okay.
I was not saying we should do it over years. It's just, it's a capital plan item that should be part of the capital plan. And this would be one that Nuno sounds like he's going to recommend it be done next year. We do have the whole heating system to begin with. That is always fun, right? As things don't work. And fortunately, that's one of the things having Al Carella around is good to know. And messing with the pipes before that, we need to keep fingers, toes, and everything crossed that if there is a leak, we're going to have to jump on it. That's all just the way we did when it did happen. But after that, we'll get everything done. Okay. One of the things not on your list, but that I know about and is the work that needs to be done with regard to the insulation and all the crawl space vents. And let me just explain that a little bit. We found that when we started really working on, 116 and the apartment there, that the insulation that had been put into the crawl spaces was blocking any air from coming in from the vents that were in the crawl spaces. And that needs to be dealt with because it is making it so the moisture in there is in effect corroding the pipes that are in there. And the same way we have a problem with the gas lines, we have therefore problems with the plumbing lines that are under the bathrooms and the sinks and the kitchens. Am I describing that right, my friends Nuno and Sal?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So do we have a plan as to what the best way to deal with that is, or are we still working on that?
It's a work in progress. It's going to take a while to devise a proper plan, but I've been dealing with Antonucci and Ralph to see if we can come up with a solution. I've spoken to Sal about this, is possibly having to build a little box around the existing vent, which would allow airflow under there. But how are we going to identify leaks in a bathroom that are unseen, and then we know about them 6 months later because they've come to the surface. It's going to be a work in progress.
Well,
We can have more
I
discussions
guess
on that. Yeah, we can have more discussions on that.
Okay. I guess you got two problems. It's dealing with getting better ventilation and then determining which bathrooms do have a problem. And
Right.
So again, an assignment until the next meeting. But that's also something we probably should really get on and stop the corrosion that may well be happening. Aren't there those infrared things that let you tell when there's moisture below the floor? And for instance,
there is meters, but I think they're more of a prop than, especially, well, there's professional ones that are several $1,000s that are actually accurate, but the ones that are available to, a guy off the street, it's really a prop.
Well, there should be a contractor that has a several $1,000 one. Maybe you could pay to come do that.
So
all right.
Is this the same? This is the same issue that surfaced when we had to like dig up that lady's like whole apartment, because of her. And is there any reason to think that this issue would not be we would not face this issue in all of the units? The insulation was probably done uniformly across all units, right? So
yeah, I think it is not likely that there's a leak in under all the bathrooms,
Right.
but chance of it, and that's what we need to figure out, how we do that without tearing up every apartment to do that. The insulation issue can be dealt with, and what the best way to do that in terms of letting the air from the vents get into the crawl space is the second issue. Once we deal with that and fix wherever there is a leak now, hopefully that won't be an ongoing problem. But it is a problem that does need to be addressed so that we don't have continuing apartment 116s. And it's probably in some ways more pressing time-wise than the gas leak problem, because of the moisture in there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a big fan that sucks all the moisture out, and but get on this. We really need to talk about it. Let me ask if there's still members of the public. Is there anyone still left that would like to ask a question?
No, there's the only people who are in attendance are us, Rick.
Boy, we really managed to bore them well. That's great.
There was one attendee and that person has dropped off at this time, but I can keep an eye on it for you.
Wonderful. Okay, that's good. Nice work. Okay, the asbestos and the gas pipes, which were about 150,000. We don't have a price on the asbestos. The backup replacement for the backup for the ejector. This one's a new one for me, so describe it, please.
Sure. So in Louis' garage, superintendent's garage, is this 6 foot tall, basically power backup generator that powers our sewage pumps. So if the power goes out, those pumps will not function properly, and we will probably have a lot of flooded apartments. That just failed about 2 weeks ago, and we've been troubleshooting it. Unfortunately, the wires leading into it were running correctly, so we fixed that. They're now operating in a safe manner. They're not being ran through crawl spaces, and so the lines are running appropriately. It was funny that Louis' power was actually running off this generator, which we fixed, but now the generator does not operate at all. And it's an older generator. I don't know how old. It's at least 10 plus years, and I don't really know how long it's been there. I initially thought there was two, but I was there this morning. There's only one. So if there's a power outage and some rain, we're gonna have a big mess on our hands.
So we don't have any backup at all now, you're saying?
No.
Yeah.
That's the primary backup.
And we should take care of that.
Yeah, I think so.
We should take care of that. That's a priority.
I'm just listening to all the stuff that you've been dealing with, Nuno. It's a lot of stuff going on, construction-wise, and this. So, any objection to Nuno spending what looks like about $25,000 to get this fixed up?
Well, it's going to be replaced because we've tried to repair the existing unit.
Yeah, I mean the issue fixed up. You're going to replace the backup generator, and but it sounds like all the wiring in it and the leads to it you've dealt with already.
Yeah, that's all been troubleshooted. That took about 2 weeks just to find where these wires were run, and we ended up finding out they were running a kind of a fire hazard manner. So we rerouted a lot of wiring, sorted out the Louis power situation off of this because Louis was without power for about a week until we figured out what was going on. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster on this issue.
And we've been working with what contractor on this?
A T&G, they've been our house electrician for a while.
So how, one of the things that we don't see, and we certainly need to see in advance of our budgeting meeting, is how we're doing against budget. So
Sal, we discussed it.
Yeah, we have Nuno and I worked on the budget comparison report. We needed to kind of clean some up with reclassing of some of the expenses and everything. And we're running a small profit, basically, a surplus, I should say, for the year. So we're in good shape. And we've taken care of the capital items that needed to be reclassed, that were in the budget comparison report that really should be capital items. So doing that, we have a more accurate picture now. So we're, like I said, about $8,000 in surplus to our budget.
So that's based on amortizing the capital items?
Well, some of them, we were paying for repairs, let's say, in some of the apartments. For instance, the 116, Nuno was paying out of the operating, just for operating, his operating budget for, to streamline everything. And we needed to take that money out of the operating, because it's more of a capital item, and move that to the capital side of it, so we can really look at the operating budget as truly an operating budget, not being infused with some capital items.
So do we all understand that it's not that the cost isn't being booked as a cost, it's just being booked against our capital reserve rather than against our operations?
That's right.
So that the operations will come in within budget, but we will see see a reduced capital reserve.
Right.
Right.
Does anybody have any questions about that, or?
No.
No.
It's really an accounting issue. That's it.
Yeah. I got it. It's just how you're classifying different expenses. Yeah.
Exactly.
So just for the sake of clarity, are we definitely replacing that generator at the cost of $25K, or is that like discussion? I just want to make sure I'm capturing it correctly.
I think we've approved doing it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm working without people raising a yay. I'm looking for nays. It makes it a little harder for the secretary, I guess.
Yeah. No, I want to make sure that the notes are accurate. So if it's approved and we're good, I just want to capture it. Yeah.
Yes, and I think you should be indicating that we got a very quick financial report just then from the treasurer, who indicated that we're running a little under budget and with a surplus. Okay. Any other discussion we ought to have about new business that deals with operations? Want to spend a minute talking about our other major topic, which is development, but I think we covered everything in your report that needed some discussion, if I'm right, Nuno. And so, Melissa, is there anything to report about what's happening with the town's planning?
There's nothing specific to report right now, except that it looks like it's getting picked up again. We do have a call scheduled with the consultant, I think later this week, just to talk about, whether we can move that ahead now. I know we kind of put it on hold because of COVID and, just kind of concerned that it wasn't the right time for it. And I'm not 100% sure, where the board is at in terms of being ready to move forward, but I think there was an interest from Nancy and Jane, I believe, who may be taking this on as her kind of being in the lead on the project, to just have a conversation with the consultants to see about, where things stand and what a timeline might be. So that's kind of the only status update I have on that.
Okay, and Diana, I know you had some things that you thought were useful to talk about. Anything that with regard to what's happening in housing?
Yeah, sure.
You want to give a quick report on that new housing organization, or not so new? Yeah.
Yeah. And do you want to let Nuno go, or do you want him to stay for I'm fine either way. I don't know if it's boring for him.
I love looking at Nuno. Why do we even raise that?
Yeah, I'm just getting some work done. I'll listen.
Okay.
I will leave before the debate, though. I got my popcorn ready.
Yeah. No, we're gonna finish up in another 10 minutes or so.
Sure, I'll listen in.
Okay. So, yeah, I guess I just wanted to give you guys a recap, because we had talked about something like pretty similar. So there's something, I guess, kind of analogous to what we had conceived of putting together a coalition. And this was catalyzed by two entities, the Community Resource. And just to caveat this whole thing, this is really focused on the village of Mamaroneck, but it does pertain to us and to the town. So just bear with me. But this initiative is the Mamaroneck Affordable Housing Coalition, and it was kicked off by Durandi from CRC and from Rich Nightingale, who operates the Washingtonville Housing Alliance, which is a nonprofit affordable housing developer. So they, and if anyone has, even more accurate information, feel free to jump in. But Washingtonville has some money to build housing, and they had made a proposal, and then there was like a moratorium on new construction, and then there was a lot of environmental regulations put in, and having to do with building like close to within 50 feet of two of the rivers. So this coalition, and it was about 15 people, a representative from the Board of Education, myself, just looking over my notes, some students from the high school, some faith leaders. So just kind of different groups that maybe had an interest in affordable housing. They, we're thinking that instead of applying to the Board of Trustees and get rejected, that maybe they could get a site and kind of rally around that. And so we're trying to build this coalition of different stakeholders to kind of work together. I did ask them, because, we're obviously the town, if there was a site available, would they be open to considering something within the town as opposed to the village? And Durandi from the CRC said, definitely, there's an affordable housing crisis, but access to public transportation is pretty important. So, the great thing about where they were proposing to do it was very walkable to the Mamaroneck train station. So it's still an informal coalition. They haven't, chosen a site and rallied around it at this point. There's been 2 meetings so far, one on July 10th, and then one a little bit on the 31st. And there hasn't been one since then. But the obstacles, and I took these notes, so, this is very crude report, is that there's like perceived overcrowding in the schools. And I know, Melissa, you and I have talked about that. And then there's just people's kind of knee-jerk rejection of affordable housing because they think it's going to bring in a type of people that they don't want. So this group is trying to, build kind of a political constituency to support it, to, kind of support elected representatives who stand in favor of it, whether it be in, the village, the town, wherever, although I do honestly think they're much more focused on the village. They were interested in the proposal that you guys had worked on. And obviously I wasn't a part of that. So I did my best to kind of represent what was proposed, just to give them a little bit of an overview. The only other kind of issues that were raised is that there's, CRC works with lots of different types of people, but their most vulnerable people are their undocumented, and they have, they're very concerned about evictions. So they have 300 people with notification of rental arrears who they're concerned when the eviction moratorium, expires January 1st, that a bunch of people are going to get kicked out. So they're like very concerned about that. The other thing that was raised, which was also kind of new to me, is there's an issue with local landlord discrimination by income type. So that's like not allowed. Like if someone has a Section 8 housing choice voucher and you're a landlord and you have a vacancy and they like pass the background check and all that stuff, you have to accept them. It's like not okay not to. But that apparently still happens a lot. So that was, really an issue. But like the headline is there's, kind of a desperate need for affordable housing and folks wanting to get more built and support the constituents of the CRC and, other people who can't afford the expensive rents in our community. So that's kind of like the high level. They did go through, someone asked, which was also my question, which is like, hey, I thought there was like some new rule that if you're going to build new housing, some percentage of it has to be affordable. Rick from Washingtonville gave the example of the Mason, which is that like fancy apartment building that's right behind Halftime. Like, I don't know if you cut through on Hoyt Street to get to I-95 North and you look to your left, it's like a, it looks really nice. It looks like a Brooklyn lofty apartment. And so he gave the example because he said, we worked with the Mason on that, and of the 118 units, 5 of them are affordable. But in that case, they were able to use 80% of the Westchester AMI. And that comes out to $92,000 for a family of 4. So that's like not really affordable. And for frame of reference, like CRC said, the majority of their clients are making anywhere between $15,000 and $32,000 per year for a family of 4. So there's just like a big discrepancy between, I think either what was intended or what kind of may look like on paper and what was actually, accessible to, to people who are in need of affordable housing. So let me just pause right there to answer any questions because that's a lot of info. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was educational and informative. Anyone else? I have some comments, but anyone else?
Sure.
the, let me just some history. We used to call it low-income housing. It's now been called affordable housing. Somehow or other, affordable housing is a lot more expensive than low-income housing. And it's also sociologically sounds more acceptable. But
It's a bigger grouping.
right. And it allows
Affordable is
for,
only to 80%.
yeah, right. So it sounds like this group at least has stepped forward to find support for a site like we had talked about the need to do. So it's a great example of how to begin moving forward. I leave for the next board here to decide whether it's a group to work with or whether it's just a good example of how to move forward, because they're going to be focusing on the sites that Washingtonville wants, and CRC's population may not be the population that this housing authority is interested in serving, or they might be a disagreement on sites. But anyway, it definitely is something that ought to be kept in mind as we go forward. And thank you, really. That, and you know what's happening to people who are going to have the courts open all of a sudden and their doors opened also as they're thrown out is going to be an awful thing. It's going to, one thing, there will be a rush on Section 8, and there isn't Section 8 around, but there probably won't be any need to not be, well, there will be no problem finding people who are looking for apartments, but whether they could afford hammocks will only be with Section 8. Okay.
Just one comment on that. I think if we do decide, to pursue some advocacy work around affordable housing, it would make sense to not duplicate the effort since it's a new effort and figure out ways to, work with the group that's already come together. Because it would seem to me, to have two groups working towards the same goal in the same geography at the same time, sort of, duplicative and sort of also, if we can't get affordable housing advocates all on the same page, it's hard to get other people on the same page. So I think it would behoove us to try and to marshal all the resources of whoever is interested in this together as a kind of as unified voice as possible. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
And
Yeah.
Diana, if it comes to your attention that landlords are refusing Section 8, that information should go straight to Anna Denoy's office. She works for the town and she's the housing, she manages the Section 8 vouchers, and she should know that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And sorry, one more thing on that topic, because it actually has reached like very critical point, is that the CRC, in conjunction with a couple of other groups, have launched a new initiative, and they're lobbying for legislation called Right to Counsel, so that all people facing eviction would be, if they can't afford legal representation, would be afforded that. So I can send the kind of like petition around. They're trying to lobby the state government to change the laws so that, people, regardless, I think, of immigration status and payment income type, would be afforded, counsel, so that if they're facing eviction, at least there's kind of an intermediary to advocate. But yeah, I will kind of remind folks, I think everyone kind of pretty much knew Anna. She's quite a beloved lady, but, people were definitely upset to hear from CRC that there is discrimination based on income, because that, is discriminatory and illegal and just messed up. But unfortunately, I think that happens, especially with, marginalized and vulnerable populations such as undocumented or, people who don't have English as their first language.
Yeah, and Sabrina, I would imagine Anna knows the CRC folks well as so they should know to refer to her, and I'm sure they do. Yeah, my comment, Melissa, was yeah, your comment is right. It's difficult to be competitive. It would mean the housing authority not pursuing its own site and getting a coalition around it, but supporting the site or working together on one site with Washingtonville and CRC. And that's the choice that a board would have to make, is the point I was making.
And I don't, sorry, just to clarify, I mean, when I asked the question, because I, was new to all of this, I said, are you exclusively focused, on the village of the Mamaroneck, or would you be open? And they said, we'd be open to, wherever we can get approved and, make sense, and it's transit accessible. So I think, I think they've just been very focused narrowly on the village, but maybe there are some areas within the town that that might be a fit. But they,
Yes, it's not where the site is as much as whether there are two projects trying to go forward or one project going forward.
Mhm.
If the housing authority were to say, okay, you guys will join with you and support you, then it makes all the sense to not be competitive that way. On the other hand, maybe it's better to have two sites going, and we may actually get two sites built. But a choice for the future board. And I need not say anything more. Let's.
Just one more comment, Rick, sorry, before
Yeah.
we move on. Just, I would also suggest, if we decide we wanted to work with the group that's already forming, to think about, the opportunity to potentially expand their view in terms of the work they're doing, actually, because we had talked about building, constituency for looking kind of more holistically at planning for affordable housing, looking at kind of more of a bringing as many people to the table as we could, kind of get talking about the issues and sort of almost a campaign style, approach and working on maybe some kind of plan. So I think just engaging with the folks that are already working and seeing if there's an opportunity to kind of, expand, like you said, Diana, their view away from sort of one specific site, but to kind of a bigger picture conversation around affordable housing at the same time they're looking for a site might be an avenue. So.
Sorry, I couldn't hear the last thing that you said.
Sorry, my microphone is a little. Just, I think the opportunity maybe also, since this is a new group, if we do decide to engage, is to expand kind of maybe what they're looking at instead of just looking at it for a site to develop on, to actually do more planning as well around affordable housing more broadly and building that kind of constituency of support, around this issue in, whether it's the town and two villages or whatever, but, kind of our immediate area, I guess, and just getting a group of residents and support. So it may be that they're thinking, kind of narrowly, and we could come into a conversation and expand that thinking a little bit. So it serves both purposes, is just sort of my thought.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Melissa. So I guess just, I joined as an individual and I wasn't like speaking on behalf of the housing. I never said that, but I told them I was a member. So I guess, do you guys, like, I can certainly send you the next, meeting invitation and anyone can join who's available, but like, do you want me to just continue as an individual and I can give you guys updates? Do you want to like be like, we'd like to join and co-lead this stuff, or do you want to table it and think about it in the future? I guess just like what?
Well, okay, I think the present constituency of this board, in effect, Sal and myself, and Steve not being here, really don't have anything to say on that. Frankly, I would be in favor, if Melissa is also, of your saying you're there from the housing authority, but not necessarily saying what role we're going to play in, because you really should have a 5-member board decide that. So that's my thinking on that. I think it's terrific that you're participating in it, and I think for the housing authority, it's really important that we be connected with it. What decision the future board makes, about how we work with them is for the future board.
Mhm.
Melissa, is that a problem, or how do you feel
You know, I
about
think
that?
that makes sense. It's, kind of the way we were talking about the comprehensive plan, just the idea of a liaison, from our board to that effort at the moment. And as long as there's not more than 2 people attending those meetings, and we don't have an issue, in terms of quorum and whatnot. So, I think, Diana and I could both attend, or just Diana, as long as we keep it to, 1 or 2 people. For now, I think that's fine. I think it does make sense to just listen and learn at this point, and then we can talk more fully about how that dovetails with our efforts or doesn't. But I think it's important to be at the table from the beginning so we can help shape it to the extent that makes sense for us.
Yes, yes. And say hello, whoever that voice is in the background, to that nice little person.
2 people.
So,
2 little people.
Okay, so I'll continue
Absolutely.
on as an individual and keep you guys posted. And when we decide, if and what we want our official relationship to be, we can go from there. But just so I'm clear, is that what you're saying, Melissa?
yes,
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And if it works for, the time and the schedule, I'd like, if you can just keep me in the loop, Diana, I'd like to kind of listen in also, just to get a better sense of how that's developing and what, our role might be with that.
Okay.
great. All right. So, as you all know, I have indicated a resignation date as of the 30th of this October. I think I would like to have, as Nuno suggested, 1 more meeting before that, so I can be helpful with the budgeting and the capital planning. And that would probably be my last meeting. So can we talk about maybe that last week of October, finding a date? And I say that with, let me get my own calendar. So much easier to go to these meetings when they're Zoom. So we're talking about the week of the 26th. And I'm wide open. So any dates that don't work?
I can't do Wednesday. That Wednesday.
Wednesday. Is that a bingo night for you?
Totally.
Maybe the Tuesday, the 27th?
Tuesday the 27th, sound good?
Fine with me.
You and Nuno and yeah,
Good.
Rita.
I might have a planning board meeting that night. They held on to Tuesday and Thursday of that week, but I don't know yet. Their topic will be the cell tower on Bonnie Briar.
It's difficult if they have both Tuesday and Thursday and we can't do Wednesday. We could try Monday, the 26th.
It's up to you guys. If I can't make it, maybe I'll ask someone if they'll listen in, or you guys can just post me. I read your emails.
All right, so preference is Tuesday, 27th?
Tuesday, 27, 7:30, right?
Got it.
Okay.
Rick, sorry.
Yeah.
I have one more thing I want to talk about, but is that okay?
If it's quick, yeah.
So one thing, and I did want to talk about is just looking again at the different tiers. So I had a very helpful conversation with Nuno, so thank you so much, for sharing that with me. And I just kind of looking over the different tiers of folks, and I'm listening to Nuno. Please jump in, if I'm misrepresenting anything, but it sounds like, for the general kind of chemistry of the complex, having as many or potentially more tier 1 folks that we can, that kind of really helps with, cohesion and upkeep and just a variety of other things. And, I had surfaced this because, listening to the Affordable Housing Coalition and, some of the things that CRC was saying, it sounds like there's a lot of need within the community. So I was thinking, right now the percentage of folks who have housing choice vouchers as their source of income is at 25%. And so I was thinking, is there, could we potentially raise that? And, listening to Nuno, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not something we would want to dramatically change, but something that might be incremental or, going from 25 to 30 or something like that, if it's done over time, may work. But it's something that I wanted to surface with you guys as we see, big needs within our community and how, expensive it is. I wanted to surface that. And, looking at the last tier report, that Nuno sent, we're certainly meeting the need of, the municipal employees, but we're also, there's a lot of folks that are kind of just, residents of Westchester. And, that's kind of like a big percentage. So I wanted to surface that as the point of discussion. And Rick, if we were to have a, hard time cap, might be better at the next meeting, but that's something that's on my mind, and just wanted to raise that. And also, I guess, Nuno, if there's anything that I misrepresented.
Let me try an effort here to say, you talked about your basic proposal is to increase the amount of Section 8 people that we allow in, and which may mean some fewer people in the category of employees of the town. We are under.
No. That's not at all what I said. Sorry.
Okay. If we increase the Section 8, we would have a priority, let's say, for 2 or 3 more Section 8 people. It basically takes from the tiers. It gives priority to someone with Section 8 rather than a priority to someone with a Tier 1 or Tier 2 or Tier 3 categorization if they're not in Section 8. That's the ramification of it is, and I'm saying that this is really worthwhile talking about, given the needs you're talking about for the community here. But it's also a agreement we have with the town that limits, it's not our decision alone, it's a town agreement with us that we go to 25%. So let me see if I could sort of move this to a conclusion. I think it's a topic we ought to keep open. It's again a topic the full new board ought to talk about, and not those of us that are leaving. And I'd like to ask Sabrina if you could see if there's any sense that the town would be open to discussing it at all. Because if the answer is no, then no sense our discussing it.
I'm happy to discuss that with the town board. I think the answer will be if it penalizes people who work in the town and provide necessary services, then there would be an issue, but I am certainly happy to raise the conversation.
Yeah, I also can see that we increase the amount of Section 8, but within the Section 8 category, we give the tier priorities.
I don't know how that works, and that is a question I think for Anna. Can you do that? And I'm not sure you can do that.
That's right. That it is an Anna question. Yep.
In other words, you have to just take from the top of the Section 8 list, no matter where they currently live, or can you, limit it to people who are already living in the community or working in the community? And I'm not sure if that's accurate.
Okay.
So sorry, just, and Sabrina, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but when I read through that document, the agreement, I think the 25% is the floor and not the ceiling. So, feel free to check that language because I may have been mistaken in.
I understand, but there are also, in the agreement, aren't there numbers of people who should be living and who should be working in the town or from the town?
Well, it's in the tiers, it's not in the agreement. The MOU and says, well, you've looked at it more recently, Diana. It's not clear to me in thinking back on it, whether it's a cap or a floor, or I think it just says we shall take up to 25% or something like that. But it implicitly, in my mind, says that that's the ceiling also. And either way, if the town is willing to understand it as a floor, that's fine. If they want to understand it as a ceiling, let the next board decide to fight with the town about it.
Well, I'm happy to take that as a follow-up to look into with Sabrina. I mean, again, I looked at it and just to be like crystal clear, can I share my screen for a second? Because I think I put this in a spreadsheet and I think it might be a little bit easier
I'm gonna call that this time is coming, so we need to take a break. And this topic is not a topic for this board as it's now put together. It should not be a topic that Sal and I are making any judgment on. And you need a new board. And my last message here is to Sabrina to make sure that Nancy's working on that. So otherwise you just have two folks, possibly three. And time will come quickly. We're going to be into October. So
sorry, just that you want to table this until after October 30th? Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, well put. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Okay, what's happening, Melissa? This is, you can't prevent us from seeing what's happening.
Sorry, it's been a long day of Zooms and remote learning.
All right. So at that note, thanks, everybody. We'll be together on 27th. Nuno's going to get us some stuff in advance about budget. And we will focus that meeting, maybe exclusively, if not mostly, on putting together both a operating budget and a budget for the capital funding. Okay, thanks, everyone.
All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Good night.
All right.